Hello class, Miss Aarons here. We're starting chapter 13. With this lecture, we are covering quite a few sections, so bear with me. It's going to be a little bit longer. As we go through the lecture today, I'm going to try to help you write down your conceptual understandings too, so you can be doing that as your notes if you'd like to do that. So after today's lecture, you should be able to summarize the levels of organization. You should be able to identify biotic and abiotic factors in an ecosystem. You should be able to describe the roles of producers and consumers in an ecosystem. You should be able to describe the structure of a food chain, and then you should be able to differentiate between a habitat and a niche, and describe 3 types of symbiosis. So, key concepts here. Ecology is the study of the relationships among organisms and their environment. So that ecology is a vocab word. So just remember that ecologists are going to study the relationships among organisms and their environment. And there's a picture of a bird killing a fish. So ecology is the study of the interactions among living things and between living things and their surroundings. So obviously bears are going to eat the fish in their surroundings. So first off, we're going to start with an organism. And an organism is an individual living thing such as an alligator. And then we go to the population, and that's going to be a group of the same species living in one area. So now we have a population of alligators. Then we have the community. And we have a community of a group of different species that live together in one area. And then we have an ecosystem, which includes all organisms as well as the climate, soil, rocks, and non-living things in a given area. So if you're having troubles thinking about this in the animal viewpoint, think of yourselves. Okay, so here's you. And then you have your friends, which is your population. And then you have your community, which makes up all your neighbors and their dogs and their animals. And then you have the ecosystem, which makes up everything. And then lastly, we have, going the wrong way. What's going on here? PowerPoint's freaking out. Okay. Don't know what's going on. Lastly, we have the biome, which is going to be the major regional or global community of organisms that are characterized by climate conditions and plant communities that they thrive in. And we're going to go through the major biomes later on. So on your conceptual understanding 13.1, you can go ahead and put these levels of organizations in the circles. So first off, start with the organism, then the population, then the community, then the ecosystem, and then the biome. At the bottom of your conceptual understanding, it says research methods. Go ahead and just cross that out. We're not going to talk about that. So you can X that out, gives you one less thing to do. So conceptual understanding 13.1 should be done now. 13.2, things that shape an ecosystem. Today, after this, you should be able to explain the biotic and abiotic factors that influence an ecosystem and identify interactions that occur within communities. You should be able to describe how ecosystems recover from a disturbance. So biotic factors. Biotic factors are going to be living organisms and the ecological community. Those are the biotic factors. So some of the biotic factors here, we have all living organisms. So you can put plants, animals, funguses, anything bacteria that's all living. So on 13.1 conceptual understanding, it says ecosystems include biotic factors such as, and then give some examples. So it could be animals, plants, anything living. Abiotic factors are going to be the physical and non-living factors that shapes an ecosystem, such as temperature, precipitation and humidity, sunlight, soil type. So there's the other part, which includes on your concept map, it's going to include abiotic factors, and then there's some of your examples that you can put in the other circles. Nutrient availability, wind, those are all abiotic factors. So there's going to be the physical or non-living things, the things that you cannot control. Abiotic and biotic factors determine both the survival and growth of an organism, the productivity of an ecosystem in which organisms live, so how that ecosystem survives. So both of them have an effect on the ecosystem. It makes what the ecosystem is. So here you can see all the living things. We have the plants and animals. So that's going to be the biotic factors. And then the abiotic factors, which are the clouds, the mountains, the water. Okay, those are going to come together and it makes an ecosystem. So biodiversity is the next one on your conceptual understanding. Biodiversity, we already talked about biodiversity in chapter 1, and that's going to be the diversity of life. So diversity in that biosphere. So you can go ahead and put that in that section, and then you can go ahead and cross out keystone species. Cross that out. I'm not going to ask you anything about keystone species. So 13.2 should be done now. Okay, habitat and niche is going to be actually 14.1. So you can get 14.1, and here is the definition for habitat. Habitat is going to be the address. It's going to include both abiotic and biotic factors, and it's going to be an area where organisms live. That's going to be its address, so like your address where you live. And it includes everything that animals need to survive. A niche is going to be the occupation. So here is the definition for niche, which is also on your 14.1 conceptual understanding. And this is a full range of physical and biological conditions in which an organism lives and the ways in which it uses those conditions. Some examples here. It's going to be a place where it's at in the food chain, if it's a predator or prey, and physical conditions necessary for survival. So here's an example. I have a video here. If you want to watch a video, you can go ahead and watch the video, but I'm going to save time here and not watch the video for you. But here's an example. For these different types of birds, you can look at their beaks. Their beaks are all different, and then their coloring is all different, and they all survive on different places on this tree. Community interactions. Interactions between organisms that live together in ecological communities shape their ecosystems. So this is the second part of your conceptual understanding, where competition. So competition occurs when organisms of the same or different species attempts to use the ecological source at the same time in same place. So they're going to be competing for the same things. So say if you have two birds, the reason that they're all separate on those trees is so that they're not competing for the same food source. And here is the second little box on your conceptual understand that talks about the competitive exclusion principle, and that says no two species can occupy the same niche in the same habitat at the same time. It just doesn't happen because it's too competitive, and then they won't have any food. So then here's number 2, predation, and that's going to be the interaction in which one organism captures and feeds on another. So obviously anything that's a predator is going to be a carnivore, or it's going to hunt. A predator does killing and eating. Prey is the organism that is the food. Also, here we go with symbiosis, and that's going to be any relationship which two species live closely together. We're going to talk about each 3 of these. And these three are part of 4.2 as well. So 4.2, it does talk about getting the definition for competition, which is right here. You can write that down. And then it wants predation. You can write that down. And then it wants symbiosis, which you can write down that. And then we're going to talk about these three. So first off, we have mutualism, and I didn't notice that picture was covering it. And that's when both species benefit from the relationship. So both species benefit from the relationship. So the bee is going to get the nectar, but it's also going to help pollinate the flower. Next we have commensalism, which that's when one member of the associate benefits and the other is neither harmed or helped. So the tree here, the tree is acting as a nest. It's not getting harmed by the birds, but it is helping the birds as it being their home. So you can use these examples. The bottom of parts is just showing the examples. And then we have parasitism, and that's when one organism lives on or inside another organism and harms it. A parasite obtains all of the nutrients living from their host. Yeah, go ahead. Huh? Yeah, that's fine. Shout out to Miss Fanning. She's interrupting my video. Hi. Don't make fun of me. I'm recording my lecture right now.
How come you don't have a class right now?
I have plan period.
Your what?
Plan period. Doesn't look like it's loading.
Of Southeast Asia, getting ready to search for a fish that lives in a place so dangerous that most other fish won't even come near it. Ready? Let's go diving. And after a bit of searching, I finally found it. The clownfish, or anemone fish as it's also called. The beautiful tentacles of the anemone are actually deadly to most fish. The tentacles have stinging organs called nematocysts, which fire tiny darts into fish that brush by. This stinging ability protects anemones from predators and helps them capture prey for food. But how can clownfish hide in such a dangerous place? Well, that's because clownfish have a symbiotic relationship with anemones that is so important that clownfish are almost always found among anemones. Symbiotic relationships are interactions between two species that can benefit either one or both species. Symbiotic relationships are divided up into three major categories. Parasitism benefits one species while the other is harmed, like ticks, for example. There are many examples here in the ocean. Take parasitic fish lice, for example, that cling to a host fish and feed on its body fluids. Amazingly, fish will sometimes find a cleaner fish or a cleaner shrimp to help remove the parasites from their scales, mouth, and gills. When this happens, a mutualistic relationship is formed between the fish and the cleaner organism. Mutualism is a symbiotic relationship in which both species benefit from the relationship. This bird here eats the tick, which benefits the cow. In our fish example, the host fish is clean off its parasites, and the cleaner fish gets a free meal. Both species benefit, but not the sea lice anymore. Hey, I already brushed my teeth today. The third symbiotic relationship is commensalism.